Oh, I should say thank you, Harini. Thank you for being here as part of this series that we have for executive coaches, where we want to understand how, what are some of the metaphors that primarily define you and your coaching practice, and also to explore on this particular set of metaphors, the lamp, ladder, and lifeboat, as we say, right? How have you enabled, empowered, or enriched people in this as a lamp, as a ladder, and as a lifeboat? And of course, I would certainly throw some questions to you, and I'm sure I'm looking forward to learning from you as well, Harini, as we unfold this conversation.
First, congratulations. I think a much needed initiative. And thank you so much for having me here. Thank you so much. Looking
Wonderful,
forward to the
wonderful,
chat.
wonderful. It's been a while, and I'm looking forward to this conversation, Harini.
Absolutely. Likewise.
Wonderful. So I want to start off by going to that, what I just stated, like what are some of the metaphors, Harini, that define you at your current state right now? And that particular metaphor may help you connect with the coaching space better, right? So I want to understand what are those guiding lights for you now?
Me, actually, the way I see coaching is very much as an empty box, right? I see myself as that empty box because I don't want to come in with any tags, certifications, or any preconceived ideas of who I am or what I bring to that conversation. So for me, it is just about emptying myself first and getting into that conversation. And if I may say so, allowing for a higher power to do the conversation through me as a tool. So for me, it is a constant everyday reminder that I am but a tool in that conversation, that very sacred conversation.
Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, I love the word sacred, right? And
It is for me.
how did you discover? I mean, like when I think when we all get into coaching, it looks like, and I see a lot of people also getting into the space. From the time we all got into the space, I see a lot more, and it's going to only become very crowded very soon.
Yeah.
Now, how would you interpret this sacred space, Harini?
In the first place, it's a privilege, right? Getting into um, a certain different a space with people that I don't even know before, right? I mean, normally we wouldn't go and bare our hearts to people, to strangers we don't know, and yet these are clients who come to us, and of course they may have certain agendas or whatever, with how they come to us, but to me it is first about that psychological safety and how they are then slowly allowing for themselves to unpeel those layers, build that trust, that rapport, and have a conversation where it's not about this person with this title having a coach with me, as with my own titles, but it's a truly authentic conversation where um, nothing is planned, nothing is decided, right? And that is why I say I am but a tool, trying to be that best tool for that person in whatever situation they are. And hence it is sacred, right? Because of, that level of trust and that level of a privilege that I have, which allows me a glimpse into such a deeper part of their soul, right? And hence it is sacred for me.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love all of those, the right messages, Harini, that you're talking about here. I mean, it's not about fixing at a superficial level. We are helping the individual or being that support to help them connect with their soul, right? And only when they connect with that space can they bring about a larger change. And that's the possibilities of coaching as well. Sometimes I have to admit that in some engagements, I personally feel that I may have just touched upon the surface because there's so much of speed at which coaching also happens these
Mm.
days, right? The speed
Mhm.
of coaching has also increased. I've seen coaching happen as a 2 hour conversation to these 45-minute conversations or 30-minute conversations. Things are changing in this landscape so
Sure,
fast,
sure. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it largely depends also on what the other person wants. I mean, like you said, there are umpteen coaches available out there, right? So whatever fits and works for that particular person. If they want a quick fix, I'm sure there are coaches who are willing to do that. I mean, not that there aren't solutions or ideas or big takeaways from the way we coach as well, but at the same time allowing for it to happen in a very organic sense,
Correct.
right? So it's not about checking off the boxes and saying, well, okay, I nailed this one, because you're walking away with XYZ solutions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Harini, for sharing some perspectives there. Uh, I'm also curious to go back to this particular, as coaches, we illuminate people and
Mm.
we help others illuminate their own potential and their purpose, etc. Now, how have you helped your coaches or leaders shine the torch on what truly matters? Because when you see there's a lot of possibilities in front, but
Mhm.
now, how do you really channel that possibilities and how do you drive outcomes with coaches, Harini?
Uh, for me, again, it goes back to the core of who they are, right? And having those initial few conversations, or maybe initial one conversation, where we kind of get to that core. And it depends on, how receptive or how open the other person is as well at that point in time, right? So with some people, we get to it bang, in that very first discussion. With some others, it could take a couple of discussions before they even realize or understand the depth of what it means to put the spotlight on something bigger than themselves, right? I mean, it's not everybody who knows what that is, right? So it takes a bit of time. And I think it's about letting them know that they have to be gentle with themselves, on this journey, right? There are no quick fix answers to this. It's taken so many, what do you say? I wouldn't even put it in terms of years or months, but failures and the way we've stumbled and then figured out and picked ourselves up again before we even have an inkling of what this bigger than ourselves might be at this phase in our lives. And we're talking about busy corporate leaders who haven't really had time to think about anything except their KPIs and deliverables. So it's a hard question,
Yeah.
right? If we just ask them, okay, what is it that you care about that's bigger than yourself? So it is about, again, helping them um, slowly and gradually figure out what that might be. And for me, it is a lot of deep conversation around their core values. Because that, to me, it's a lot actually about finding a lot of the profound stuff in the everyday mundane, right? Which we do miss,
Yes.
right? We are so after the profound that we don't realize that the answers are there in the everyday mundane, right? So for me, it is about helping them first shine the spotlight on the everyday mundane,
Mm.
right? And then maybe connect the dots to that something bigger, which could be purpose, which could be, those big lofty, goals or whatever it is that they've defined for themselves.
Absolutely. Very, very well said. And I think that's the beauty. I mean, not ignoring the everyday
Right.
mundane and just focusing on something. I mean, it's like through that mundane, there's meaning and meaning that connects, and that's what leads to
Yes.
purpose, right? Without that
Yes.
meaning, purpose is too lofty and audacious.
Absolutely. And it's also about keeping it sustained,
Yes,
right? I mean, many a time we talk about something bigger,
yes,
and then people write great articles about it, and then it's all, fabulous for the next year, and then what?
correct,
Right? So
correct.
if it resonates at a core deeper level, then you know that it is going to be sustained for a while. And to me, another very important indicator of that is, what is the pain that they are willing to go through to upkeep that, or what is the pain that they're willing to go through to lend their voice to it, right? And that to me is how we arrive at what they are authentic about. So it kind of irks me when people usually tell me, oh, I am an authentic person. Of course you are, right? We are all as authentic as we know to be, right? We don't know to be anybody else. But my bigger question is, what are you authentic about?
Correct. Correct.
Right, and that gets them to think a little more about validating their reasons.
Correct. And I think a gradual and slow process to touch upon the values that truly matters is the only way they will get to that space. It's not about the busyness or the quickness or the smartness of just achieving something, right? So you rightly said it's about
Yeah.
the spending as much time to building on the values, and that's where you can really focus the lamp better.
Absolutely. And it's not also about a means to an end. I'm doing this because I want another, maybe a bigger job, a bigger title, thought
Correct.
leadership. I want to be a thought leader. Like I said, it cannot work that way. It has to be truly bigger than yourself.
Correct, correct, correct. Very well said. Very well said. Now, in this process, sometimes when we work with the lamp as a metaphor, sometimes leaders may may believe that something has extinguished that lamp. They have a certain focus, and sometimes there's a certain feeling that comes up that, hey, this lamp is extinguished. How do you help these leaders discover what has extinguished their lamp? How do you help them touch upon that?
That's a beautiful question, actually. How do we help them find the light that they have lost? Right? That's your question. Wow. Many a time it's not even about the entire light being lost. It's probably one beam that they've lost, right? Uh, but that affects a large part of who they are and how they see themselves, right, in their environments. So I work with a lot of leaders who have lost their jobs, right? And these are leaders who have only identified with their clout or their titles or the brands in which they exist, and suddenly all of that is ripped off almost like a band-aid, right? No time given to them to even process. And they are not financially insecure because many of them are C-suite leaders, and so that's not the case, but it's a case of lost identity.
Correct.
Right, and that is probably one beat, right? I wouldn't say the entire light has been snuffed out of who they are, but the way they perceive it is exactly that way, right? To them, it's like, who am I now, right? Without the title, who am I without all of this? Yeah. And I always again believe that if anything is happening, it is not happening to us, but it is happening for us, right? And if it is happening for us, that is the compassionate curiosity that I want them to have for themselves first, to figure out, why is it happening for me, right? Is there something that I'm meant to do that is so much greater than who I am, as part of this title? Is there impact that I can amplify or expand way beyond this organization?
Correct.
And maybe it's not something as lofty as all of that. Is there time that is being created, time and space being created for me, so that maybe I can first care for myself, my health, right? I know of a few very senior leaders who have gone through great losses simply because they haven't taken care of themselves. Right? And so it could just be that. So the universe to me is the most intelligent being here, not the coach or the coachee. And it's always giving us those answers. It's always, guiding us if only we are available and receptive to those, right? So if this is happening for you, just be curious about what next and how next. And I am here holding space for you, right? So let's go on that journey together. Yeah. So another very important metaphor that I keep reminding myself of is that I am on that rim, right, of that pole. I don't want to ever be anywhere else on that pole. Many a time what happens is, if especially, as parents, sometimes we see ourselves slipping slowly somewhere in the middle of that bowl, thinking that we are helping, say, the child, right? And the more we get into the middle of the bowl, we're not going to be able to hold space for the other person, right? So as a coach, for me, it is a very intentional reminder to keep myself on that, in that peripheral rim, and keep the coachee in the center of that bowl, right? So yeah, and I think by just letting them know that, either through words or otherwise, they slowly build, that rapport and that trust, and that's when those authentic conversations even have a chance of taking place.
Correct, correct. And that's when sometimes, as you rightly said, it is not about what that's a situation like this has happened to me, or it is for me, right? That shift
Mhm.
in perspective can help you see that the light doesn't get is actually not extinguished.
Right. Yeah, and it isn't. Yeah, and I think sometimes it's just about having another person remind us of that,
Yes,
right? And not just remind us at a surface level, oh, you're good to go, you have it in you. No, but when it comes from a deeper place of not just hearing from the other person, but also it aligning with knowing it, right? And then believing it, and then owning it, I think they get through that difficult time of having one beam being snuffed out.
beautiful, beautiful. Very well said, Harini. Now, while we move from the lamp as a metaphor to ladder, and in every coaching conversation, there is a level of awareness.
Hmm.
And from like in a journey, there'll be many different levels of awarenesses that gets generated for the coachee as well as for the coach. So, how do you personally help your uh, leaders or coaches climb up their levels of awareness if we're using ladder as a metaphor? So, how do they climb this?
Nice, very nice question. Um, to me, again, it isn't about the external milestones of progress that necessarily tell us that we are climbing the ladder, right? So maybe they will find a new role, or that promotion, or whatever transition they are seeking career wise. But if they can, go to that deeper level of who they are, not just what they can do. What they can do, they know, right?
Yes,
How well they can do it, to me, is that immediate next level of awareness, right? Because um, that many of them don't know, right? And none of us also. I mean, we don't really sit and dwell on how well we do things, or what really enables us, right? I mean, we just go with that flow. And
yes,
then, why do they do it? Right? So it is unpeeling those layers, and then it is also about, like I said, it's not just knowing, but it is about validating, right? It is those validations and the tangibility, the tangible demonstrations that really tells them that, okay, this is why I can. So for me, the big shift is from saying things
yes,
as part of their self promotional whatever pitch that they are used to, and we come with so much of preconceived conditioning, right? Just being in the corporate world for all of these years, they know how to pitch, they know how to interview, they know how to brand themselves, but is that who they really are, right?
correct.
And so that challenging that and asking them if there is something more to it, right? And then taking them on that journey from knowing to owning, I think is how I enjoy that process of climbing that ladder, right?
Beautiful.
And so, and also it is about that self promotion to, oh my god, if I don't say these things about me, then it's almost like, I'm not, you know defining or sharing enough about me in an authentic sense, right? So yeah, I guess, yeah, those are the different milestones, I would call them.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Now, while this awareness is happening and they're climbing the ladder of awareness,
Right.
then when they're suddenly at that at a level, and when they suddenly realize, hey, I'm afraid of heights, how do you help people resolve this particular fear of heights when they, because you're going to help them climb different levels of awareness, and then there's a sudden fear of this height? What do we do then?
Absolutely. I mean, and I think, that fear is quite natural for everybody to, for it to kick in at any point in time for anyone. Um, for example, they may know who they are. They may be very convinced with their values and, what the non-negotiables are. And then they may have that doubt of, would this fly if I was to say it at an interview, for example, right?
Mm.
And my question there back, the way I asked him is that, well, if you had to go, without it, right? You would maybe take that role, it would be perfect on paper, but you will evict yourself out of that situation sooner than later. See,
Yes.
that's the thing, that core authentic self is never going to accept any kind of misalignment, right? And if there is misalignment, it does the work on its own. And that's how we see, sometimes we see redundancies, we see us being removed to another geography, or, sometimes people leave, right, from our environment. And it's because something is not aligned, right? So the question is, what's really at stake, and what are you really going to be losing,
Mm. Mm. Correct.
right? Yeah.
Correct.
So I mean, it's again about, seeing how they have defined those heights for themselves.
Correct.
Are
Correct.
we ready to even scale a certain height? Maybe we are not yet prepared for it.
Correct. Correct. I mean, this is something that I constantly keep seeing. And even today, in one of my coaching
Mm,
conversations, this polarities or the dilemmas that they have, right? Like, um, if am I taking, I mean, I'm doing a lot of work, and I'm 80% of my life is dedicated to work and only 20% to my own self. But while I'm doing it, there's this feeling that, hey, am I being taken advantage of for my capabilities? And that the system just puts that there, and at the same time they they are having this fear that, hey, if I don't get this life balance, then
right,
it's going to be, I know it's not going to be sustainable.
right.
Still somewhere they're stuck, that without, I mean, because the dilemma itself is not easily resolvable.
Mm-hmm.
It's
So
kind of
true.
get, yeah,
So
so
true.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
See, when we talk about work-life balance, again, I think we put too much emphasis on certain things, and then we think that we can just, work around it or work towards it, and, things are then going to be hunky-dory. What is work-life balance for me could be something very different for you,
Yeah.
right? So again, whatever works, whatever works. And again, it's just about opening up that possibility of defining it for themselves and then owning it. And that's why, I go back to the knowing, believing, and owning. Like,
Mm.
we all know work life balance is necessary for us, right? A coachee could believe that he or she has it or doesn't have it, right? Based on what they're hearing from others, or based on the work that they're putting out there, or based on just comparing themselves with somebody else,
Correct.
right? The ownership is when you're doing something that is absolutely right for you, regardless of what anybody else thinks.
Mm.
Right? And once you have that ownership, it is absolutely liberating,
It is.
right?
Yes. But this also comes with fear, Harini, because especially when people who are not at a level where they can just say, and there are a lot of people, like say, they're not yet a senior leader,
Sure.
but somewhere the mid-level leaders have
Yeah.
this fear that,
Hmm.
what if I really put forth my values? Am I going to be, is that going to be a de-accelerator for my career, or for my growth? So that's
Sure.
always where they get stuck, right? And that's a
Right.
little bit of a tricky space, how to get them to shift perspectives.
Right. No, no, you're very right. It's also about, doing the right thing at the right pace in your career. And
Yes.
again, for me, it is about career happiness, which is the end goal, right? I mean, we talk about progress and moving on in our careers and growing, but if it doesn't have career happiness anywhere there in that formula,
Right.
not really worth it, right? Which takes me back to their core values. Sometimes some of my clients have to take on that next role, even if it is not aligned to their values, because the paycheck at the end of the month, right? Sometimes it's as simple as that. And which means that one of their core values is family, right? They have to get that paycheck for that family, right? And so it's also about inviting them and letting them know that these values will go up and down. It doesn't always have to be in perfect balance,
Yes.
right? And allow for it to change. It doesn't mean that it isn't a core value,
Yes.
right? It just means that some other core value of yours is taking, precedence, right,
Wonderful.
and priority, and allow for it, because that is the most important thing there. So to your question, if it means that that promotion is going to get them a higher paycheck, or if it means staying back and working late hours for whatever particular project so that they can move forward, which again goes back to serving family as a core value, by all means. At that point, don't sit and compare, oh, I'm not having work life balance, and somebody else has a better life than me. You are serving a core value of yours.
Absolutely.
Enjoy it. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Which takes me to what I had in mind next. Now, while we do this as a coach, and you said I'm in the circle, I'm not getting into the circle, right? I'm there.
That's right.
How do
Yeah.
you establish this container of safety for your coaches while while they go through this transition? Because, well, you rightly said, aligning
Right.
core values need not be fixed.
Mm.
They would it's okay for them to keep
Sure.
moving around in a certain ambit.
Right. Right. So your question is, how do I
Provide
manage
the
to stay on the
container of
road, right?
safety. How do you provide this container of safety for them to?
Right. Okay. The container of safety. I think it is a genuine interest in people, right? I think it stems from something as core and simple as that, right? And I wouldn't even say curiosity there. It's just that genuine interest and a feeling of, like I said, that privileged glimpse into their lives, and reminding oneself of that privilege,
Yes.
right? I'm not coming here to help you or allow you to progress or move on, or, no such.
High orbit talks.
Yeah, no, 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 no. It is a privilege that you are willing to open up, right? And so the only thing I can do there is to provide that container of safety, right? That's all I can initially, because I have no idea what the coach is coming in with, right? What their issues are, what they really want to be, working on. All I have is the safety,
True.
right? So it is just about being intentional about it and reading the room. I think that's another one, right? Again, safety, if only there was a formula to it, right? Or if there was a formula to building trust, we would all do it the very same way. So I think it's a lot about sensibilities, reading the room, which is again to me a lot about pausing, right? Because if I don't pause, then what am I really going to be reading there, right? So pausing and then picking up on a lot of the unsaid aspects, right? And then pivoting, right? I think the pivots are also very necessary, because somebody could be in a rush to, get to that next job. I don't want to really hear anything else. Just tell me how to get there. Yeah. Somebody else could be a lot more about, I want to go deeper, but I don't know how. Right? The next job, or the next opportunity, it's going to happen when it does. Yeah. Or somebody else could be dealing with a lot more, anxiety or stress. And so I think that first needs to be addressed before we can even get to the bigger questions that they have in their heads, right? So it is about pivoting carefully, and then doing whatever pitching, talking, coaching, that we generally do, right? So to me, the pausing is all important.
Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, and this reminds me, I'll be very curious to find out when, while, I mean, pausing is so difficult. I mean, even for us, because the mind is constantly in the zone of thinking and wanting to process, wanting to solve things for the environment around us, etc. What are some practices, Harini, that you have that helps you to nurture the pauses?
Oh, that's a deep question. Lovely. And I don't usually talk about this at all, Shri Priya, because these are personal routines,
Yes.
right? But at the same time, for me, that is why work or personal life, they're not very different, right?
Mm.
Because all that I am doing on the personal end, these routines of mine,
Yeah.
are what seep into the everyday work, whether it is facilitating a workshop or whether it is coaching. um, it is about ensuring that I come in at the right vibrating level. Yeah, and if you ask me, how do you maintain that, or how do you even ensure that it is at the right vibrating level, I don't know what is right or what is wrong. All I can do is do my routines. It could be spiritual, it could be physical, it could be emotional, right? All of these routines that I have for myself, uh, I do it on a regular basis and then come into work. And then, like I said, I let that higher power do whatever work it has to, right? So when I say routines, of course, if for example there is a workshop, I can't just say I'm going to just show up at the workshop and let the higher power do whatever work it has to. I have to do the prep work, right? So instead of worrying about impressing at the workshop, to me it is about what is the back end homework that I need to do to express authentically, right? Rather than impress. So I remove the whole impress bit out of it. Yeah. And so when it is about expressing authentically, I have to fill that toolkit with whatever necessary research or prep work that I have to do, and then presence, the actual delivery, I leave it to that.
Beautiful, beautiful. So it's about learning to have that I don't know, is this what we call as a detached attachment? Yet having that level of connection to the change, but not really trying to muzzle ourselves into that process and show up smartly or show up
Yeah.
intelligently. But
Yeah.
it's about being that silent enabler there.
Yeah, basically you not being there at all. There is no I for me in coaching, right? And the moment the I even peeps in, I feel like, and you can see these little shifts, right? I mean, when you are in the zone where there is no coach, where there is no coachee, and there is just coaching,
Correct.
right? And then you also know when this conversation could have been a little better, right? And you know that there was too much of you in it. Yeah.
Yes.
So for me, it is just about keeping the I out of it. And I think everything else, the rest of the magic will happen, right? So the biggest practice is in ensuring that the I is out of it.
Well said. Well said. Now, in order to go through, navigate the journey of coaching,
Mhm.
uh, everybody needs to take risks. There's some level of risk. You can put different words to it, but let's use the word risk here. So, how do you really motivate the coaches to take risks? And when they take risks, they'll obviously sometimes fall down. So, how do you catch them at the same time? I'm asking two in one question, where it is about, encouraging them to take risks at the same time, catching them when they fall. How does this process happen for you and the leaders you enable, Harini?
I guess when it comes to taking risks, it's pretty much aligned with what they've set, their goals as, right? I mean, if their goal is uh, a promotion or I don't know, a speaking opportunity or whatever, the risks, there are these come with it, right? They may be scared, sure. I mean, a lot of my coaches, um, I'm seeing almost as a pattern, face the whole imposter syndrome, right? I mean, it happens, right? They have their goals, they know what they need to do, yet there is this huge fear.
Yes.
So it is about breaking it into smaller pieces, right? Deconstructing it and asking them to give themselves permission first to try something in a, as a smaller chunk,
Correct.
right? Try something that is going to be a little different in their routine, right? It could just mean taking a walk, a solitary walk. Yeah. What shows up, right? So for them, inviting them to first be in touch with themselves. I mean, we talk so much about rapport, right? And rapport immediately kind of, denotes that, oh, it's rapport with another person. To me, it's all about first rapport with the self,
Yes.
right? And that rapport with the self is going to give you the answers, right? And it's going to tell you whether you're ready to even take those risks. Now, as a coach, how I can support you is to tell you, okay, maybe you want to armor yourself and equip and empower yourself with X, Y, Z, and how can we, kind of get through those whatever process, right? You're going to decide for yourself, but that doesn't necessarily mean success,
Correct.
right? Success is when that person has internalized that process and they're willing to give themselves permission in a very honest way to give it a shot.
Yes.
Not because I'm asking them to do it, not because anybody else is, but because they want to do it.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it is a process. I mean, it's easier said than done, right? You know that. So I guess, yes, it is about gently holding their hands and sometimes, you know, also calling it out, right? Sometimes, my coaches say, oh, you call out my BS like nobody else does. And it's not like we want to call it out in a manner where it's going to hurt, but it's just about laying it all out there, right? And then for them to pick up, pick up whatever they think they want to deal with at that given point in time.
Yes. Yes. Correct. It's about helping them even to prioritize that there could be things that are holding them back, but then there are answers in front of you and only you can take that action and you can prioritize the action in a safe and, as you said, deconstruction.
Right. And it doesn't even have to mean progress in a very typical way. Like I said, it is how they're seeing it for themselves.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Harini, there is also this, you see a lot of, you hear these uh, words often these days: managing the gray, choppy seas. Then there's this
What was the second one? Sorry.
navigating the choppy
Choppy.
seas,
It's choppy seas. Okay.
choppy
Right.
seas.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a fog all around, and you got to build that clarity in the gray. And
Right.
there's this kind of, while you're in the seas, there's always or when you're in a ship, you're having these headwinds,
Mm.
and that kind of, it's taking you, that's the environment that most people are in. There's a lot of I mean, the environmental factors are kind of driving us in different directions as leaders. Now, how do you help your coaches navigate these things? Let's say you're the lifeboat there. How do you help them there, Harini?
I've never seen myself as a lifeboat, but going with that analogy, with that, well, there are going to be those uncertainties, right? In fact, to me, what is certain? The moment I feel like I'm certain of something, then it's more of the I that gets in there that says that yes, I am doing it. I want to be in control. I want to be certain, right? For me, it is helping them get comfortable with the uncomfortable, but never saving them from the discomfort. I want them to allow for that discomfort to show in all of its entirety, right? So, especially if there are the redundancies, people go through it in different ways, right? Anger one day, absolute sadness another. And it's not about telling them, okay, now come on, let's move on.
Yeah.
Allow for it to show up in whatever way it will for you, right? and I'm here to hold you as it shows up, right? So it's not so much about saving them as a lifeboat, but to kind of maybe help them paddle as they are holding on to that boat, and both of us are holding on to that,
Yes.
right? The coach on one side, the coachee on the other side, right? And the coaching conversation is what I see as that life,
Mm.
right? And we're both holding on to it, and we will get on that boat at some point.
True, true, true. That's a good way to look at it, right? Rather than saying I jump into the gray to solve for the gray, right? So
Yeah.
be there and kind of moving in the right direction to navigate it.
Right, because it's not like the coach is not in the gray, right? It's like, it's almost like, okay, you're in the fog and I'm out of it, and here I am pulling you into, the light. The coach is as much in the fog as the other person. I mean, everybody has their own, areas of gray, right?
Correct.
So it is about just getting comfortable with it.
Yes, yes. It's like the lens through which you are able to see that and connect
Hmm.
the dots in that, and then move forward in a manner that is authentic, rather than
Right.
seeing different people navigate it differently and then trying to put yourself down, going back to the imposter syndrome, right? Not allowing yourself to touch that space.
Right. And sometimes when people come in even expecting to be saved, right, or from that fog, I think it's time for that pause again to let them know that we're not here to save you. We're not here to give you those answers, right?
Correct.
But we're going to come and find those together, right? In terms of what's right for you.
Which also reminds me, I mean, thinking about sometimes organizations resort to coaching
Mhm.
when they feel that something is, there could be a leader who's not bringing value, or supposedly the environment is not helping him to contribute well, and they want to, perhaps show him the path out, but they feel that coaching could help, and then they try and reach out, and they present the fact that, hey, you either he stays in the job because of your coaching, or he's leaving, he or she. And then there is and perhaps they even talk about it to the coachee, and then the coachee comes into the session thinking, is this coach going to be the magic to help me retain the job or find the next
Mm,
one? So the
yeah,
way organizations leverage coaching has also changed from what it's kind of, it's a tool, it's a fascinating and an enabling tool, but sometimes misunderstood.
absolutely, absolutely, right? So even today, people are still confused with what counseling is, what coaching is. Um, Sometimes it gets into those areas of therapy, right? So there are all of these misconstructions.
Correct, correct. And we'll have to be very careful. And that's where, as a coach, it's also important, where because we are in a responsible space, it's important, as you started out the conversation, a sacred space. We need
Hmm.
to be honest and having that level to say, if it is positioned for this, then we are not going to
Mm,
be that magician.
yeah,
We are not the magic nor the
yeah,
magician. It's the coachee who is the magician. And we are
absolutely,
only going to be enabling the process of magic, if at all, from the outside.
absolutely, absolutely. Which is why, to me, a coach need not even know much about the other person's industry or um, culture or anything at all, right? So I've sometimes had coaches who are just about beginning, especially when you're coaching the coach, right? And when there are those sessions, the a very common question that comes up is, oh, but I don't know enough about that person's work, or I don't know enough about that particular industry. How can I coach him? Or I'm not comfortable with that level of leadership, right? So how am I going to be coaching this C-level executive? You don't need to,
Correct.
right? That's you cannot prepare for these things and get into the conversation,
Correct.
right? You are that mirror to that to that other person, and that's all that you are.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's in very simple parlance, when you say you get relegated to how you sound, right? In that
Mhm.
way, we get relegated to the way we have put our inner voices, right? The voices that define, that's guiding us. If we
Absolutely.
don't as I remember where you said, I mean, um, you said we don't need to touch, it's not about building rapport with the other person, it's
Ah,
building rapport with ourselves, right? So
correct.
having that genuine and authentic or very intimate connection and being confident with where you are as a coach is
Mhm.
what will help you to do. And it's not, as you said, getting comfortable with not knowing and getting comfortable to enable
Correct.
under whichever circumstances, right? It comes with that level of clarity and conviction that we hold.
Right, right. And I guess we are extremely vulnerable, right? When we go in that way. Yeah. As an empty box, when you go in, you are extremely vulnerable as well. And there is power to that vulnerability,
Yes.
right? So much power to it because um, that's how I think you even build that rapport, right? That relatability. Yeah,
Yes,
because I'm not coming in from a place of knowing or from a place of deep wisdom, and I'm going to impart it to you, and I'm going to help you find your answers and help you through this mess. No, right? So as long as that is clarified in not so many words, right? And if it is just understood, I think we're already off to a great start with the coaching conversation.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, so much, and I'm very grateful, Harini, for having this.
It was
Uh,
my pleasure.
I know we've kind of navigated this conversation across different levels, and I think some
Right.
very important, beautiful nuggets have come out. And I'm hoping that people who are either listening to this video or or this conversation or watching this video, they should find some good connections and and be able to look at either coaching or the process or the coachee. I mean, being any one of these three, right? I'm sure people will find some value, Harini.
I don't know about that, but I've thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you, Shripriya. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Wonderful, wonderful.